Osama bin Laden, the billionaire son who became the world's most wanted man. For years, he vanished like a ghost, taunting world leaders while planning attacks that changed history forever. But what really happened in his final 24 hours? Stay with me as we uncover the secrets of the raid that brought his reign of terror to an end and reveal the shocking details hidden from the world. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join us as we uncover the darkest mysteries in true crime and history. Because this story is only just beginning. Osama bin Laden's life began far from the battlefield that would later define him. Born in 1957 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, he was the 17th son of Mohammed bin Laden, a billionaire construction magnate with deep ties to the Saudi royal family. Surrounded by wealth, privilege, and prestige, Osama's childhood was a world away from the chaos he would one day unleash. But while his siblings followed paths of business and education, Osama's journey was set to diverge dramatically. Educated in elite schools, he grew fascinated with strict interpretations of Islam and the writings of political clerics. During his university years, he was influenced by thinkers who preached resistance against foreign powers in Muslim lands. He wasn't just a young man with resources. He was becoming a man with a cause. But the event that would truly ignite his radicalization was still on the horizon: the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. When Soviet troops stormed Afghanistan in 1979, Osama bin Laden saw it as a divine call to action. He poured his family fortune into supporting the Afghan resistance, supplying money, fighters, and equipment. In the mountains, his reputation grew, not just as a financier, but as someone willing to live and fight alongside the men he supported. But what began as a campaign against the Soviets would soon evolve into something far more dangerous: a global jihad against the West. By 1988, Osama bin Laden formalized his growing network of fighters into an organization he called Al-Qaeda, meaning the base. This wasn't just a military alliance. It was a movement designed to unite radical fighters under a single global mission. Bin Laden believed that Islamic nations had been weakened by foreign influence, and he aimed to build an army to drive those powers out. But his new vision was not limited to local wars. It targeted world powers, especially the United States. After returning to Saudi Arabia, bin Laden's fiery speeches against American military presence made him a controversial figure at home. In 1991, he moved to Sudan, where Al-Qaeda established training camps and plotted against Western targets. By 1996, he issued a declaration of war against America, claiming U.S. troops on Saudi soil were an occupation of Islam's holy land. But his bold declarations would soon be matched by violent actions on a global stage. In 1998, Al-Qaeda struck American embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, killing over 200 people and injuring thousands. This brutal attack confirmed bin Laden's transformation from a wealthy Saudi exile into the leader of the world's most dangerous terrorist network. The FBI immediately placed him on its most wanted list, making him the most hunted man alive. But even as the manhunt intensified, bin Laden was already planning an attack unlike any the world had ever seen. On the morning of September 11th, 2001, the world changed forever. Al-Qaeda operatives hijacked 4 commercial planes, executing a coordinated strike against the United States. 2 planes crashed into the Twin Towers of New York City's World Trade Center. One hit the Pentagon, and another was forced down in Pennsylvania after heroic passengers fought back. Nearly 3,000 lives were lost in a single day. But as Americans mourned, the man behind the attack remained hidden, declaring the operation a victory for his cause. For President George W. Bush, this was a turning point. The United States launched a war on terror, targeting both Al-Qaeda and the Taliban regime that sheltered them in Afghanistan. Billions of dollars were mobilized and thousands of troops were deployed with a singular mission: bring Osama bin Laden to justice. But while armies searched the mountains, bin Laden slipped into shadows, eluding capture with shocking ease. For years, he released video and audio recordings, taunting the United States and urging followers to continue the fight. Each tape reminded the world of his survival and influence, frustrating global intelligence agencies. He was not just a fugitive. He had become a ghost, haunting nations with the fear of another attack. But American forces would come dangerously close to capturing him just months after September 11th, only to watch him vanish once again. In December 2001, intelligence suggested bin Laden was cornered in the Tora Bora Mountains of eastern Afghanistan. U.S. and Afghan forces bombarded the caves for days, believing he was trapped. With snow falling and bombs shaking the mountains, victory seemed within reach. But the terrain was treacherous, and the enemy knew the caves better than anyone. Bin Laden and his loyal guards slipped through mountain passes under the cover of night. Local fighters later claimed they saw him escape into Pakistan, leaving U.S. forces stunned. The manhunt had come within inches of success, only to end in bitter disappointment. But from that moment on, bin Laden was no longer hiding in caves. He was building a new life in secrecy. For nearly a decade, bin Laden moved between safe houses, relying on a close circle of loyal couriers. His family lived with him in hiding, cut off from the outside world. Yet through it all, he managed to remain invisible, evading satellite spies and the most advanced military in the world. But the key to his undoing would come from a single mistake, a courier whose movements would finally reveal the ghost's hiding place. In 2010, the CIA tracked a man named Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti, a trusted courier in bin Laden's inner circle. Al-Kuwaiti led intelligence officers to a mysterious compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, a city known more for its military academy than for fugitives. The compound was unlike anything else in the neighborhood. It had towering walls, barbed wire, and no internet or phone connections. But what raised even more suspicion was the figure spotted walking alone inside the courtyard at odd hours. This man, tall and deliberate, earned the nickname the Pacer from analysts who studied surveillance footage. Though his face was never clearly seen, his height and mannerisms matched descriptions of Osama bin Laden. The CIA was increasingly confident, but without proof, the risk of acting was immense. But if this was bin Laden, the world's most wanted man was hiding in plain sight, just a mile from Pakistan's military academy. Months of observation revealed a strange routine. The family inside burned their trash instead of throwing out, never left the compound, and lived in constant secrecy. Everything pointed to a high-value target inside. Still, there was no photograph, no phone call, no absolute confirmation. But the President of the United States was about to make a decision that would change history forever. President Barack Obama faced an impossible choice: strike without proof or risk losing bin Laden forever. After weeks of tense meetings, he authorized a daring raid codenamed Operation Neptune Spear. The mission would be executed by the Navy's most elite fighters, SEAL Team 6. But if the operation failed, the consequences could spark a global crisis and humiliate the United States. On May 1st, 2011, two stealth Black Hawk helicopters lifted off from Afghanistan under the cover of darkness. Flying low to avoid radar detection, the SEALs crossed into Pakistani airspace. The flight alone was dangerous, but what awaited them inside the compound was even more uncertain. But as they neared the walls of the Abbottabad compound, disaster struck. One helicopter malfunctioned and crash-landed inside. Despite the setback, the SEALs pressed forward with surgical precision. Explosions rocked the compound as they breached doors and cleared rooms. Women and children were moved aside as the team searched floor by floor. Each second felt like an eternity, every shadow holding the possibility of the world's most wanted man. But the final moments of Osama bin Laden's life were now only steps away. On the third floor, SEALs entered a room where they found the figure they had hunted for nearly a decade. Osama bin Laden stood before them, the man who had orchestrated the September 11 attacks and evaded the largest manhunt in modern history. For years, he'd been the symbol of fear, hidden in secrecy. But in the silence of that night, his time had finally run out inside the compound he thought was safe. Within hours, President Obama addressed the nation, announcing to the world that Osama bin Laden was dead. Crowds poured into the streets of New York and Washington, waving flags and chanting as news spread across the globe. For America, it was a closure many had waited a decade to feel. But even as celebrations erupted, one haunting question remained. How did Osama bin Laden manage to live undetected for nearly 10 years in a city full of military officers?